This is River Niger, third largest river in Africa, famous for its contribution to West Africa's economy and tourism. The Niger Basin remains a very valuable habitat for both Africans and their gifted natural flora and fauna. Hence, the creation of the River Niger Basin Authority (NBA), which was created to foster the cooperation, management, integration and development of resources among member countries. The NBA was established in 1964 with its headquarters in Niamey, Niger Republic. The authority has the objective to manage the ecosystem of the Niger Basin and to enhance the socio-economic livelihood of people living along the basin through funding from the Global Environment Facility under the United Nations Development Programs, UNDP. The Global Environment Facility and UNDP grant to NBA is to improve knowledge-based management and governance of the Niger Basin, support integrated water resources management for the benefits of communities and the resilience of ecosystems, as well as contribute for the attainment of SDG Goal 6.5. The Niger Basin Authority is expected to break the vicious cycle by harnessing resources from the African sub-region to bring about sustainable growth favorable to the vulnerable and disaster-affected individuals and groups in the affected areas in Nigeria within the River Niger Basin. At the moment, many communities are displaced within the Niger Basin. A trip to some communities within the basin in Edo and Delta states in Nigeria reveals the task ahead of the NBA. Lush, wet, refreshed bushy vegetations with sliver-lit leaves and stems, complemented by a highly fertile soil. But all these washed away by the raging tempest of the Niger. This and many more is the precarious situation surrounding the inhabitants of the River Niger Basin in Nigeria. An area filled with nature's gift, an economic hub and center of commercial activities for many people is now in the eye of the storm with thousands displaced, livelihoods destroyed, and even hope for the future is dashed. No thanks to the flood from the River Niger. Stretching about 4,200 kilometers, the River Niger is the third largest river in Africa. Around 130 million people live in its basin, which covers some 2 million square kilometers, flowing from 9 riparian countries comprising Benin, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Chad, Côte d'Ivoire, Guinea, Mali, Niger and Nigeria. River Niger covers about 7.5% of land area in the African continent. Here in Nigeria, some communities within the Niger Basin are found around the coastal states of the southern region and others found around the northern. The inhabitants around the River Niger survive by farming, cattle grazing and fishing. Around the basin are natural vegetation features that provide opportunities for handcraft designs of huge economic value for men, women and youth, which ordinarily would have been wasted away.
We dey keep fish for here. We get land to farm rice, even cassava. We get land for tomatoes, pepper that you can easily carry out. We get land for potato. We get land for tomatoes. Anything you do here, it will yield fine.
A 45-minute boat ride from Egenabode to Okweko and Uzano communities in Etsako, its local government's area of Edo State, Nigeria, looks fascinating. However, the situation becomes pathetic at the sites of the affected areas. Nature's gift now becomes a curse, as flood has reduced the value of the basin and that of its inhabitants. This is Ogoya Ozano village in Ozano, Etsako, its local government area of Edo State within the basin. For over 2 months now, feeding, clothing, and even medication has become impossible to access by the locals as a result of the negative impacts of flooding from River Niger.
This flood will come to disturb us. Our farm is don't to see food to eat now. It's a problem. So to get to sleep from problem, so we send small shade where they sleep for years. So we tell government to help us for this process will come. So since morning we there, we don't have food to chop. So our people they go market, if they don't come for market, we cannot see what we will eat.
Formerly, we have cassava of 3-4 years, but since the flood began, there's no longer 3-4 years cassava any longer. Just after this year now, everything died off.
This is Ukpeko community, another riverine village, a border town between Edo and Kogi State. Here, the future is bleak. Even livestock had not spared.
The river key our dog fowl so. Dog see them. Now so all just die. See them. Both our fowl, goat, they die for water. That the dead body they grass. So.
Mr. Abubakar Sule is the head of the community.
Just today, sir, one woman get injury. The way when the injury they float blood, they carry and go to Agenebo there. So we need the help.
Who may want deliver now to carry the go Agenebo there. We go use canoe to put the go that side. So we need government to help us.
The only government presence since the flooding is the visit by the local government chairman to the affected communities. The cry of the inhabitants to the government is but only one demand: support. The inhabitants believe there is a way out.
That's what we are planning so that the government can assist us. Even though we tell the council, they cannot do anything. Since August, we reported to the council. Now, only yesterday, council chairman, now they say people come when water don't dry.
Surrounded by 3 different rivers, which used to be their source of livelihoods before the tempest, the people of Uzanu, also in Etsako East local government area of Edo State, have had their access roads flooded and washed away by the same rivers that have served as their means of livelihoods for decades, leading to untold hardships in the community.
We are everything. We are hardworking people. We are not lazy in the community. So, because even to have a mentality, you see things by yourself. How can somebody labor there now? Where will he should we want to? Before you now get a boat to take you down to Obode, see this distance. From Upeko, Ogoyo, Ekwabere, Okachama, Okweteku, Yeruwa, Unobu, but all these our villages over there. No hospital, no hospital, no maternity, nothing. We are part of Nigeria.
It is sad how swamping, green and fertile vegetation have all been swept away by raging flood in these communities.
We are right here in the land of Uzanu, where flood has washed all our farmlands, all our lakes where we fish, all our economic trees have been washed off by this heavy flood for this year. You can see now that the flooding is still flowing and flowing. It has taken over this road. This is the accessible road that is linking Uzanu and Ukpeko. Other villages, Ogboyo, Ogberaya, Unobu, Ekwabele, a lot of our other villages that form up the Southeast Uneme clan, this is the only road that is leaking. Now it's no longer accessible because of this flood. And we cannot even go to our farm because our farm has been taken over by the flood. We now suffer untold hardship as a result of this heavy flooding this year. It has washed off a lot of our buildings. even from Upeko there where you have visited yesterday, Ugboyo, Kwabele, all other villages, our buildings have been washed away by this flood.
From Ugboyo to Upeko and Uzano, the call for access roads, food, and cash palliatives is very loud.
As I day here, I'm a widow, no husband. I'm suffering with my children. The only way that I can get my food is farm. So water don't carry the land. No way to farm again. I'm suffering.
From the westland of Edo to the coastal state of Delta, another host of the river basin, the scenario is not different. Located in a tropical rainforest along the Niger Basin belt, Esaba village in Ughelli South Local Government area of Delta State can best be described as an island with huge vegetations of great economic importance. The rivers around it also flow into the river Niger, which has overflowed its banks and swept away their means of livelihoods. Here, even the vegetation features also constitute a challenge. Mr. Michael Ekwemuka is a biosafety conservation consultant working in the local community.
Water hyacinths on the water body. This boat can't even navigate through. You have to cut across. You have to carry out some mechanical processes to remove the water hyacinth from the waterway so that you can navigate through. So, in that regard, it will impact their fishing activities. It will impact their farming activities. Sometimes, because when you're trying to go fish, you see these things on the road, on the waterways. The time it will take you to remove them, and you would have lost a whole day of activities without doing anything.
Esaba residents seem desperate for help. They gather here periodically to deliberate on the way forward, but without hope in sight.
Esaba community is located at Ughelli South local government area of Delta State. We are into fish farming, hunting, crop production and animal production. Presently, because of this flood, our farms have been covered with the water and our crops have been destroyed. We don't have any good source of income anymore. Even our roads that lead to other communities, to the urban communities, other urban towns, they are all covered with water. Because of bad road, we cannot move to the town to get even food for the town. And this is a challenge. Even those of us who are into raffia production, producing mats and other things, it's even difficult for me to even go to the bush to go and to collect the raw material for our raffia production. And this is a very big issue for us. And we are able to eat to feed is a very difficult challenge for us. That is the situation we are passing through right now.
For cassava self, water don't enter the cassava finish. If you even lose cassava, no food inside, even they don't die finish. To buy garri, not dey easy. We not get food, we not get cassava. Even everything when we plant don't finish.
Which assistance you want?
For me, we even assist. As now, they go make brief food. We not get food to shop now. They go make brief food. We not even get something to shop. If now basket of garri, 3 people they share, divider for community now. We not even get garri, rice. We not even to go market go buy something. If you even get money, now hungry they beat you with money.
The inhabitants, especially women and youth, do not depend on farming alone. They harness the forest vegetation and create handcrafts such as mats, weavings, and even canoes.
This is what we dey do so. It get many use. Like this. See, this is what we dey comot inside. This one, this very one. The fish where they keep for everywhere. Now this thing they take the hook am. If you dry your fish, you go use and take do the fish well. Range and well dry am, go sell am. Even this Congo meat, if you want to and sell without this thing, you no go fit do am. So now this is what they take they do am. Then the mass when they inside, if we weave and finish, our children they use and they sleep. Like Deeper Life, when they want to do their receipt, they come buy mass from us well, plenty. They use and they put for ground, they sleep for their camp for that time. Then they use until they dress house too. Like people where they not will do ceiling for their house. Now this bab, then they take the dress their ceiling for their house.
Inside bush or if we will come up for 3 o'clock, before we go reach us, now 6 o'clock again. Before we go inside bush that side. And this water well can't come here so. If we go the bush, now so people they gather, they call the Portuguese, carry us reach us again because the work don't tire everybody there before this water they are float soon.
Because of this road and the transportation, people and who will take them down there. There's nobody who will come and buy them here and take it there for sales. So that is why we are begging the government to come and help us. We are doing a very successful business here, but there's no way that we can able to pass them out to sell.
This practice, however, is not without negative impact on their livelihoods and the environments. For instance, deforestation reduces the amount of water intercept and increased runoff, and harvesting of raffia palms and trees for handcraft, which expose the rivers and the environment to climate change, flooding, among others. It is commonplace to find fuses in open spaces along the riverways within the basin communities as a result of lack of toilet facilities, poor sanitation, lack of drainages, and hygiene as the major cause of open defecation. Experts say open defecation along the river increase heavy pollution in the river and encourage the growth of water hyacinth. With the intervention from the Global Environment Facility through the UNDP, the Niger Basin Authority, an intergovernmental organization in West Africa, is expected to break the vicious cycle by harnessing resources from the region to bring about sustainable growth favorable to the vulnerable and disaster-affected individuals and groups in the affected areas within the River Niger Basin.